I remember when I was a child, every place in the city was a playground. Every street was for meeting friends, every tree for climbing. But then the cars came along, taking more and more space. When was the last time you saw children freely running into the streets to play?
So yeah, we are here with another episode on Design to Connect. And I'm going to start our introduction with some numbers. Normally you are the number girl, but I just wanted to feel included. I mean, there are 3 numbers in this introduction, but I'm feeling proud. So did you know that by 2050, 70% of world population is going to be living in cities? In that 70%, most of them are going to be children. And when we are saying children, we mean the people below 18 years old. Mm-hmm. And already with the rapid urbanization, we see how cities are becoming very not child friendly and how we don't have any safe spaces for children to develop, to play, to do all those things. So if we don't do something about it now, that we don't have 70% of the world population living in cities, it's gonna get bad. So we better start now. So that's why today we have our guests to talk to us about child-friendly cities and how we can develop them and how to work with children and all those interesting topics. And yeah, you can go into the introduction.
You are good with numbers, so don't
it's 3 numbers.
It's okay. Okay. So I have the honor to introduce our guest today. So we have Viviana Cordero-Vinueza, and she's a Dutch-Ecuadorian lawyer and urban planning specialist driven by social and environmental justice. She's co-founder of Huasipichanga, which is an interdisciplinary consultancy for urban transformation, aiming at positively impact communities by co-creating more inclusive, playful, and livable cities. Viviana focuses on planning cities hand in hand with children and youth, and that's why we are so excited to have her. Thank you very much, Viviana, to be here with us. And hello, first of all.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here and very happy to have this conversation also and to see how we find overlaps maybe on your interest as well and on the amazing work that you've been doing also so far.
Thank you for being here. And actually, something we always like to do before delving into our profession is to ask our guest and to you today, how are you? But we were there. And because we are going to talk about children, we wanted to ask you, what's your dearest memory in play, and either now or when you were a child?
That's a very nice question. Well, I think I had a very good childhood, and I have a lot of nice memories. Some that maybe conflict my current profession, but I think 2 of my nicest memories when I was a child. One was I had a friend who lived in the rural area, so she had a huge house, and there was water and a lot of also agriculture that was being done. So we spent days and days there looking at the nature, at the bugs, also getting vegetables, getting in the water. It was really, really nice. But I lived right in the city center of my city back in Ecuador. And I remember when I was 6, my parents gave me one of these cars, the electric cars that you have when you're a kid. And I think it's funny because that was my favorite thing, to be around the city in the car. So I think like, well, now I always promote pedestrian cities.
Okay,
But
it was electric.
if I ever become a politician, people will see me like 6 years old in my car.
They're gonna publish your photos and be like, this is who she really is.
She really was. No, but at the same time, I think it was amazing because I lived right in the city center. I went through avenues that, I mean, in that little car, you know, I would go to the supermarket on my own, get some stuff and come back.
Right.
I don't know if that would be possible today, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are like really cool memories that I had when I was a kid.
It's really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it means that the city was safe enough, both physically and like you could go out there without being stolen and without being hit by a car, even with your small car, which means it was a good situation.
It was safe. It was quite safe, I would say, yes.
Yeah, just wanted to say that I think like also my memories while you were talking are a lot related to being outdoor and just being in my garden with for me it was my neighbor and I was in love with him. I have this memory of being in love with my neighbor. I don't know. I told him after some years. I was like, maybe I'm coming out now. No, he knew. And just be in the garden with him and my brothers and just being able to be free and just, observe the grass and what's going on. So we should do that more often now.
Yeah.
So you said, I mean, we of course searched about you, but you also said before the call that you were a lawyer before, and then you decided to go into urban planning. So we wanted to ask you, why did you feel that would be a better path for you, like to create a change rather than being a lawyer? Because I think for so many people, if they want to create change, especially social change and social justice, they would say that being a lawyer probably would be, more useful. I don't agree with that, but I want to ask you, why did you feel that shaping cities is such an important thing when it comes to social justice and creating change?
Yeah, I think most of us don't really know how the city design affects our daily lives. So it's just like a matter of not being conscious about this, right? And I always wanted to be a lawyer because I wanted justice and because I really wanted to, really achieve social justice, help people. And I studied law. I was like super happy. And then I started to work. And I was like, oh, this is not for me, because the thing is, maybe it was my case, maybe you can do something more preventive when you're a lawyer, but in my case, at least, the bad part had already happened. The injustice have already been done, and then they reach to you to see, okay, how can we amend this? Is there a punishment? Is there something I can get back? So people get to you already with the problem, and it didn't feel to me that justice was going to be achieved anyway. I didn't work I worked a lot on environmental law, on constitutional law. So I do think that it was anyways quite impactful, because if we got to, to a good result, that might actually lead also to change the law towards different things. The processes were super long. Like, I remember one of the processes I did in 2015, I just heard about last year. So I really was like frustrated with the fact that, okay, I've been a lawyer, but what am I really doing? What does justice really mean? And some of my best friends, they're architects. And when I was working, and I was really fed up. And they're like, we're going to Central America for holidays for 2 months. But within that, we are doing a workshop of social architecture for 10 days. And it is about renovating public space. So you can come, you're very social. And I was like, okay. I went, yes. I was like, but I'm not an architect. And it's like, yeah, but it's a social architecture workshop. I'm like, that's not what it means.
That's not what it means.
But I went. It was funny because this architecture, who organizes this is the Organization of Architecture Students of whole South America. So it's huge. But I was the lawyer of that organization, or at least I helped them to stuff. Like we were all students, right? And recently graduated.
Yeah.
So I went without knowing anything. And when I got there, they are like, oh, we actually didn't tell anyone that you are not an architect because, you have to be here. And I was like, why do you do this to me? But anyways, I was there already. We were going to do some intervention in the public space. It was in Nicaragua, and it was like next to a lake. So, but it's a huge lake, so it's almost like a beach. And then they just wanted to do some pop up, I would say, very conceptual interventions, but really nice. And the intervention in our case was that place had a lot of wind, and they wanted to show the wind, and we only had wood, and so we did like these cubes that we wanted to just put on the trees so that you will see them move with the wind, and people would know like, oh, I can just sit here and contemplate the wind. And also there was like no place to really like be after being in the water, so this was like a good place to dry, and like good like people would just transit that place, but it was like a good place to be. But a few days before, or the day we arrived, there was a huge earthquake in Nicaragua. And actually we were on the how do you say, the refuge
refugee camp?
The refuge.
The refuge. And because the government gave it to us for the event, but when that happened, a lot of families started to come, so we had to leave, of course. And then it was like really impactful, to see that. And still we went with the cubes, so I was a little bit like, but we have 120 architects here. Why are we not helping, to rebuild a house, a business, whatever? Like, why we haven't changed plans? And they were like, no, we're going to do what we came to do.
Yeah.
So it was for me a little bit like, okay. But then we did the cubes and everything, and the people started to come to that public space. And I will never forget, there was a lady that came to me and said, thank you so much for doing this, because I did lose my business, but now I can come here and I can sell the things that I used to sell in my business. And we never saw this place as a place where we could really meet up, but you transform it, and now we're meeting up here also to think about the reconstruction, or just the neighborhood comes here because it's the best place to be now. And I thought like, wow, I mean, that's really cool.
We did
like
something.
We did something. But that was the first time that it made me think, if you design a place properly, you can provide justice from the beginning. Like the whole thing made me think like, okay, you can provide people spaces to do their businesses. You can provide people spaces to meet, to be with their children, to, just relax. And even when something as an earthquake happened, it is so important that you reconstruct the space. So that really made me think like how spaces are so far from our consciousness. We are just doing stuff. But what happens if it's not safe, if it's not properly built? And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I love this. I love public space. So I'm gonna go back and I want to do this. And I really convinced my friends that were architects to start doing things in the public space, because I could also see how simple it was to make a change. I mean, these cubes were a very simple intervention, right? But people really like it transformed the way that they were interacting, like not only the way they were interacting with the space, but with themselves. And so that it really clicked in my mind. And then we went back, we started to really do some small activations in the public space. Like one of the things we did was we literally took one of our grandma's living room, the full living room. We put it on a van and we took it to a place that was super dangerous in the city.
I guess your grandma was not so happy about it, but
she was fine. I think it was funny, but yeah, I mean, but literally, I remember because I worked in my lawyer's office, right? And then there were these very big stairs that you can cross, but they are super big, so they had like platforms, and then you cross that and you got to the city center. But it was always empty, so people wouldn't dare to cross at 6 p.m. where everybody leaves the offices. You have to cross to the city center, but people will go around to not cross, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, but this is really the best place to just get there in a second. So why did we sit there just to see why people is not coming, or just to, like be there so people feel like, oh, there's people, then I can pass.
Yeah.
Really unconscious, of course now I know there are so many studies about it and the eyes on the street, but at that time it was just like, let's put our living room there and sit. And like we did that, we started to play the guitar, and all of the sudden more people will come, and we will do that every Thursday, and more people would come, and then we ended up doing concerts, events. It was huge. The municipality gave us equipment. They gave us a lot of different things that we needed. And we started to interview people because the municipality at that point actually wanted to ban street musicians, buskers. Because they could not control the quality, because people wouldn't like them, because they're loud, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, but let's try here, because we were literally playing the guitar in the street without a permit or anything. And we started asking people, and they saw it was such a success because people were registering with us to also play, to do these concerts that I told you. And we managed to finally get the municipality together with the artists. And at the end, we ended up like changing the law from banning the buskers into the municipality creating a fund to pay artists that wanted to play on the street. So it was a great success, and really, I don't know, it maybe took us 6 months or something like that. We didn't really have that objective. It all happened very organically. But after that, they called me to work at the municipality as a legal advisor, and also like in some participatory processes. So we did a lot of these, and I always like kind of combined the law with that. But then at some point I was like, well, I really need to study a little bit more about this. So then I came to Europe, I came to the Netherlands to study urban management. And I feel now I'm very much an urban planner more than a lawyer itself. But of course, I mean, I think the background and like having this idea of how to put it into policy, how to create legislation has been very useful, and it's a good skill to have. I would say I do not regret being a lawyer, but it's been a great path to go from law to this.
So inspiring.
Yeah. And I wish we could do this here also, because I'm feeling like if the same ideas were coming to our minds, and it comes very often, of like changing the public space, but it's so hard in Europe. Like I feel like even the smallest changes you want to make, it's a lot of bureaucracy, and they don't let you like I don't know. It's very difficult. Like, do you think it would be possible to do this now in Netherlands, like the same process to happen in Netherlands?
I mean,
it's completely different. I think you're right. I mean, the regulations here are way harder, and but at the same time, I do think that there is more synergies between the government and the people. Like, I don't know in Italy specifically, but at least in the Netherlands, they are already promoting these kind of things. It's not easy to get to know about it very fast. That's the reality. But for instance, here there are a lot of funds if you want to green up your sidewalk, or if you do want to close your street and make a play street, these kind of things. And I think there must have come also from people just trying, What I do think is that if you go to the municipality and ask for this, you might get someone that doesn't understand and says no. If you do it, at least you get them to get to you and say, why are you doing this? And you have a better possibility. I mean, I don't think that in Europe, well, it depends where you are and stuff, but I think at least starting it, even if they come and close it up or whatever, at least that is your moment to have that connection with the municipality and have the conversation. So yeah.
Yeah, and don't they say ask for forgiveness, not for permission?
Exactly.
That's true. But
not that I'm doing this, but
no, we are not saying to do it.
No.
My group recently did it in Milan. Did you see? And they fined them.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yes.
Good to know.
I'll show you.
Good to know.
Yeah. No, it's strange.
So thank you. Now it was super inspiring. I mean, I think, and something else you were talking about is the fact that, you were a lawyer, but you are still a lawyer in the way, of course, you act in the city. And I feel so many times, especially architects, they believe they have the power and the knowledge, and they forget how much important is to understand and to talk to other professions and to other professionals, which is, I guess, what we are always trying to do as placemaker. Like the more you have different professions around you working in the city, the best it is we can have. I mean, the best we can have impact, positive impact in our cities, which I don't know.
Yeah, totally. And actually, I think the placemaking aspect does this very well, and that's really nice to see. And also, you don't even need a profession, right? Like you are a citizen, then you can really, and it happens organically. Okay, maybe in Europe people is more respectful, but still it happens that people just need. I mean, to design for their needs. They don't need to be a designer for that. And we see that a lot when we work with children. I mean, children know exactly how they need their stuff, and they will do it, and they know about their city, and well, sometimes they know, or at least about the places that they are
living and
using, right? So yeah, definitely we need to talk with different professions, but also I think like with citizens in general, the knowledge is there. And we need to, start just understanding how we can talk these different languages, because sometimes it is as if you are speaking French and I am speaking English and we don't get each other. So it takes time to put everybody there and find out that, you mean that by this word, but it's definitely needed.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a bit longer, but I feel on the long run, it's the most effective way, because it's easier than to go back and say, oops, maybe we meant something else, and then to understand how to pursue our main goal and our shared objective. But let's go to children's. Let's do that.
Yes.
So I think, should I go? Yes. So now that we know a bit more about yourself, I think what we really wanted to try to start with you is to understand what are the fragility and the needs that children are facing today. And of course, as you were pointing out really rightly before our conversation, is that when you talk about children, we're talking about children between 0 to 18. And that in between you have, different age group and different characteristic. So that's our first question. And of course, it depends a lot, as you were saying, about on the context, but I'm sure you have a huge experience.
Well, huge no, but I hope that my experience is insightful. But yeah, no, I mean, there are tons of needs, right? But I think I can point out some of the current challenges that maybe were not there before. But the main challenge is actually urbanization. So you already mentioned when you gave the numbers that 70% of the people will live in urban areas and 70% of the children will live in urban areas. And we've never faced that. And urban areas are more and more dense, and traffic is there. Traffic is one of the biggest problems that we have. So children cannot move in the way they used to move before. And one of the most important things that will be, I think, the basis of this conversation is that children are developing. and they are developing physically, they are developing mentally, emotionally, socially, creatively. They are developing all these 5 skills, and the city, or in general the built environment or the natural environment, affects their development fully. Like there is no way we can say that this is not a variable that will affect them. So whatever you do in the future as an adult comes from what happens in your childhood, right? And so before, children would live probably way more close to nature or in rural areas, and that gave a different type of development. And today we live in these crowded cities where children are not able to go outside and they are not able to explore things by themselves, and that has already reduced their independence a lot. And that reducing the independence also creates this lack of skills. I'm going to give a very terrible example, but because but it's a very, I hope it can really illustrate what I'm talking about, right? But when you have a dog and you have the dog that you really take care of and never goes out of the house, when the dog goes out of the house, most likely it will get lost, or get hit by a car or something like that. But if you see the stray dogs, when you have a stray dog in cities, they know how to navigate the city. I mean, they don't have the best lives, but they know how to navigate the city. And the same happen with people or with children. There are children that, I mean, before, children had the chance to understand how to navigate the spaces that they were inhabiting, but not anymore. And it's not just saying, like numbers show that just children don't know where they're at. If you put a child like some outside their house and they're alone, they don't know where to go. And this is like a global problem, that the cities are not allowing them to have mobility, to have autonomy, and therefore they're not allowing them to develop. This is in every let's say stage of life, like from 0 to 18, we see that. COVID made it worse, and made it worse, of course, for teenagers, because when you are a teenager, you of course want to go out with your friends and as far as possible from your parents. You want that moment of privacy, of becoming a person with a different identity. And then with COVID, it was of course impossible. So that has brought a lot of mental health issues for children, and in general, when we see now the latest studies, we see that there is a huge decline of play that comes from urbanization, digitalization, but also like traffic in general. So this decline of play goes, really down. You see the curve, and then you see the curve up of mental health issues. So I think mental health is the biggest problem that we are facing now, and that we really need to tackle. And then the second thing is this idea of how do we develop children's skills, like all these 5 skills that I mentioned. And it's there are studies that are crazy, like children that grew up in the 90s, I'm from the 90s, probably you look younger than me, but I think also 90s.
90s, no.
So there are some muscles in the legs that we have not developed properly, because in the 90s we used to always play on these basketball courts, or football courts that are all flat. So we never went like up and down, like a little hill or something like that. So the children before that, like if you were from the 70s, from the 80s, you were always out in the nature and you were fine. But children from the 90s on, we have more mobility problems in our legs, because apparently we did not develop those muscles anymore because of how our playgrounds were designed.
Nice.
So it's crazy. Like there are little things, and I could talk about these, for hours, on the different things that you can connect design with how we develop. But I think that's why it's so important that we really look for our cities. And it's not only children's needs, but it of course will have like an impact in the future, an impact on the country's economies, an impact on sociability. But it's also talking about children or looking at children is an indicator that the city is a good place. I mean, if your 3-year-old can be running around in the street, then it's safe, right? I mean, you wouldn't be like, oh, something's gonna happen to me then, right? So children gives us at least a basic indication of what is good for everybody. So I know it was a very long answer and full of different things, but I hope it illustrates a little bit like that we're really looking at the development of the full generation of the future, right? And how they do in the future will really depend on how we design today.
Yeah. And I don't know, it makes me very angry when everything makes me
okay.
Like
we should be
especially exactly social change. Especially when we talk about, I don't know, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, like people call them the most anxious generation, the most, mental health issue generation. And it's so unfair because the generations before were the ones that actually created the word that is making them, anxious and all those things. And they're putting the blame on the generation themselves as if they don't have, the ability to take care of themselves or, control themselves from social media and all those things. And there's, of course, also data that shows that screen time is increasing in children. I mean, the younger they become, the higher this is becoming, and especially in like the most developed countries, we have this is happening. And I think the first thing that happens when like we hear those data is that people put the blame on the children themselves, like because they don't have any self-control, they put it on the parents that they don't want to take care of them, or on the social media. And there's some data that shows that even parents, like throughout the whole history, this is the generation of parents that is spending the most amount of time with their children. And like we are still blaming them and we are still saying that you're not doing enough. But the main thing I feel that the children, they decide to spend their time in the virtual space is because the physical space is not safe and it's not their place. So, and nobody talks about how cities are designed when we are talking about why children are in their phones. It's like the thing that never comes to the discussion. So I wanted to ask you, like, to tell us about this connection between walkability and safety of city with children's screen time and therefore their anxiety and mental health and their ability to socialize and all those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's start by this idea, right? That the system created these, as you said, and there's a I don't know, like a fact that it's what makes me the angriest somehow. But the reason why we created playgrounds, I mean, who invented playgrounds? Let's start by there, right?
Yes.
Playgrounds were invented by traffic engineers to cage children so that they can put their cars out. And I believe at that point there was not bad intention, right? They really wanted every person to have their car and their big garden with grass. And, there was maybe not an idea of the consequences. But today, we have an idea of what are the consequences, right? And I think many people working at the municipalities might not be thinking about children per se all the time, but they do know that traffic is a problem for everyone. And still, like, there is a different, like, it's hard to change that. So what I went with that is that, okay, we created this problem very fast, but we can also create that solution very fast. The thing is that you're completely right. Parents are not to blame. If anything, like, the children's development depends on a system that could take stress out of parents or caregivers in general. So parents, grandparents, also teachers, because, they have a hold of workload, and then parents sometimes are also like, I'll leave you in the school, and then you raise this child. But yes, you're right, like we're constantly blaming children, parents, and caregivers in general, when it is the system that has to take care of this. Now, what is the main thing? I think it's a matter of setting an agenda, because architects are also not conscious that they're responsible of children, right? If you think about this in a city level, in a country level, you're like, ask the social people about it, the minister of social, and I don't know, or it's about nutrition. But it's not. It depends a lot on how we are building our environments. So I think it is a matter of consciousness, education to all these disciplines to know, okay, you are responsible of this. And I always remember there is a study in Poland, I think it's in Katowice, that they ask the people at the municipality, they ask them in a survey, what of these, or to what extent do your children impact the decisions that you make every day? So from 1 to 10, when you're going to wear, how much do your children have an opinion on what you wear, for instance, and the car that you buy, and where do you go on holidays, and what are you gonna eat, and how you divide your time daily? And of course, I mean, if you have a child, everything depends on that, so they are like 92% of the decisions daily are because of our children. And then they have a survey of to what extent children impact the decisions that you make in the municipality. And it's like 1% minus, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was an amazing exercise for them to know, like, oh my God, I am designing this city to make my life miserable as a parent. I am putting the playground at last. When we talk about children, everybody asks me, okay, so how should playgrounds be? And it's like, it's not about playgrounds. Yes, we need playgrounds. Yes, beautiful. But it's not about that. It's you need places to play that children can access to immediately, where there is social activity that is not only for children, but it's also for parents to be there, to have fun, to socialize, to connect. But as you said, like we talk about safety, it's not safe, so I'll stay inside. But staying inside makes it even more unsafe, makes it worse. So I don't have a full answer of what we should do tomorrow, right? But the main thing is that we need to change the system of mobility. We need to stop thinking that we need to create our cities for people to work, to go from work to house, to buy something and then back, because that is not the reality of our lives. If you are a mom of two, then on the morning you have to leave one in the kindergarten, the other in the school, then the dad goes at 12 to pick them up from school, leave them at the I don't know, grandparents, and then one has dance class. And so the mobility chain, it's huge. Still, if you ask the transport department, they're like, A to B, like from here to the office, when we're not even going to the office anymore.
True.
So so COVID in that sense was actually helpful, because I think we are rethinking those systems, and it's gonna take a long time. But thinking about the systems, like the city systems per se, is the way that we will help children in the future. There is a lot of education on children that we have to put out there, of course, and if we will all know more about how children's brains develop and everything, it will make it also easier, right? But initially, I think cities have to be more human friendly and also nature friendly, which I think it is an agenda that is being more and more put out there. But the lobby of cars, and especially in the global south, if I can say it like that, but it's still huge, or in the US, or Europe, it's a better place to be in that sense. But if we look at huge metropolis, you don't have that chance yet. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
No, you go
we have
first.
so many things.
Yeah, I'm coming up.
Yeah.
You go
Because
first.
as you were saying about playground, I feel that many times, especially, I mean, at least in my experience, you'll have the space only for children. And like in the huge park, everyone is in their allotment. Then a space only for dogs.
Yeah.
Then now
For elderly.
Yeah, now I'm seeing also spaces only for elderly, which is like
Why?
the same spot. Why
Yeah.
you need to break down people in the and I cannot stand when I see like this playground is only for 0 to 6. If you are older, just stay out of it. Like,
I want to go play playgrounds. It's so unfair.
you
So
cannot.
unfair.
And I feel also as long we always talk about children as the future generation instead of saying they're already like
Here.
citizens.
Yeah.
They're
yes, they
already
exist.
here.
Yeah.
They already have a say on how the city should be developed for them. It's
Yeah.
not in the future. In the
Yeah.
future, it's too late.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And they're the future generation that are responsible to fix the mess that we are creating. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you were talking, also two things came to my mind. One is that the thing that you were saying about the municipality workers and how in their lives, like a lot of their decisions are impacted by their children, but when they come to their municipality work, it's not. I think if we want to go to the root of that, is this like very huge disconnection that we create from between the work and life. Like is like work is just business. You do there, you make growth, you make, development, you change things and stuff, and it's completely disconnected from what actually happens in the world. That's just business. And I think this association that we learn very early when we go to our work environments, like this is just business, so we don't care, what your needs are, like, if you're a father, if you have these needs, that need, like it's completely divided. And I think it impacts a lot, like how we actually work.
Yeah.
So I'm angry still.
Sorry.
No,
I didn't want to make you angry. No, but it's true. And I think that possibly this idea of, just the idea of creating well-being through this life-work balance would make things happier for everyone. And I do agree, like, for instance, when you have a child, right, and you go around in a stressful environment, you come from work, whatever, it is also difficult to connect with your child.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things for them to develop is the fact that they can have a caregiver that they can trust, and that they can feel this social and emotional support. And we live in this system that it's really focused on production. Like, you're not productive, you don't have much value. And I think maybe that is also why we have ignored children, because children are not yet in their productive moments, and so that's why they're the future, because while they're not. So it's more a philosophical almost idea, right? But we are living in this capitalistic system where your value comes from how much you can produce, and so children have no value. So it comes from a very basic idea of changing where people's values come from, and that they can be perceived as humans from the moment that you're born, and not and not from the moment you start producing something,
Or you can vote. That's also
so
exactly.
They become real humans.
Yes.
I think something we also wanted to ask you, because we are saying that children are already humans, and I feel something you really do really well is being able to listen to them and being able to involve them in, in designing better city. So we wanted to ask you why, first of all, but we kind of touched on it. And how do you make them the expert in this designing situation? How are you able to say to the adult, they are the main stakeholder in this process, so I'm talking to them as well, and not only to you, adult?
No, that's a very good question because there is not a straightforward answer, I would say, in the sense that there are many methodologies and tools, and I can touch upon a little bit about that. But I think first, it's a matter of 0 to 5, 6 to 12, and then how you talk to adolescents, right? You talk differently to all of them. But I think the most important thing, and I think this should be the same probably not only with children, but with everyone, is that first you observe their dynamics, right? You go and you are anyways external to that community, whether it's children or big people or whatever it is. And you observe how much time they have, who are the leaders, who like who really don't want to talk but maybe know a lot, and then you can use different tools to bring that up. What I would say that works really well with children is first that when they are heard, then they want to talk more. Of course, you have to ask the right questions. I think the most important thing is to really design a set of questions or a set of activities that would allow them to talk from their perspective and from their with their language in a way, if you want. And that they have to be at the beginning, as I said, very open. So if you tell them like, so what do you do every day? Then you're the expert to translate. Okay, maybe here it could be better. It could be, But I think I have like 2 or 3 stories where for us has been amazing to see what children can provide in the process. But for example, one of them was we were in China. And this is funny also because we don't speak the same language, right? Sometimes with children it's very easy to talk or to communicate, even if it's like a completely different language. But we were with them revitalizing a playground, not like a whole neighborhood, but specifically some playgrounds that they had in every corner of the neighborhood. But then we were at a specific park where most of the children used to go. And we asked them, like, what is the main thing you want to change here? And they were, we don't want to change the park. We want to change our parents because they don't let us use the park.
Oops.
And then like, okay, the work that you need to do is different. Like I remember there was a big wall that they could climb, right? And they loved it, but they didn't use it because the parents wouldn't allow them to use. So what we had to do is a workshop to tell the parents like really clearly like why if they climb the wall that would be beneficial for them. Like yes, it's possible that one breaks an arm, but if they do, it's not as terrible as not using the wall at all. And also with, of course, really clear and responsible data on why we're saying that it's fine that your child breaks an arm. But yeah, we could have changed the whole park with millions of dollars if you want, and they would still haven't used it because the problem was different. So I think that's one important thing to take into account. Then the second thing is, I remember that this was not from our work, but there's a story in Mexico where they really wanted to change a road to a very vulnerable neighborhood. And the road had like it was like soil and a lot of green area, but they wanted to make a bike path and also open a road and development, but they did for some reason ask the children how did they feel about it, and they said, we don't really need a road, like we're fine walking, but if you are going to do a road, please do not take this green grass away, because in this green grass we can find grasshoppers, and our families are very poor. And when we do not have anything to eat, we can pick up the grasshoppers and we eat grasshoppers. And in Mexico, it's a thing. You always eat grasshoppers. You don't have to be poor, let's say. But the children were the ones that if the parents worked the whole day and couldn't bring anything, they were make sure that there were grasshoppers so they have something to eat. So they were like, and this is the farthest we can get. So this is our source of food, so please don't take it away. And the parents, when they were consulted, they never thought about that, because they only thought about what they do at work. And yes, maybe I can get faster to work, but it might have made no difference, because at the end, where they work in the informal sector or whatever, there were days where they did not make $1, and they still rely on the grasshoppers that the children brought in.
Wow.
So I think that the children in that sense are very observant. They really can, if you just ask them what they do daily, you can really come up with what they need. And but they are not given that voice, right? And so it's super important to observe, to have a basic knowledge of, yes, what do they need for their development. And then when teenagers also, teenagers is a bit harder somehow, because they are really not given any agency. They're taken away from public spaces because some people think they're no ones. And I remember when you said before, like, oh, this playground is only from 0 to 6. Most of the playgrounds really keep out teenagers. And then we are like, oh, why are they so dodgy in the dark corners? Because what
There's
space
no
are
other
you giving
space.
to them, right? And I remember, like, recently I saw, it was so funny, that there was a park, and in the park it said forbidden to play football, or forbidden to play with a ball. And someone had made a graffiti, like, below, like, okay, we'll do drugs then.
Fair, very fair.
So I think teenagers in that sense can also be like, they can give you more rebel answers, right? You don't need to go through a process of do you want to participate, because it's hard. Sometimes they just don't want to. But just observing what they need, just remembering what you wanted as a teenager is really important. But of course, the teenagers today are different, because they have lived all these different conditions that we mentioned, COVID. The crystal generation that we call it, right? It's true, like, they do suffer more anxiety and everything, because we've created those conditions, and it is up only to us to try to change that and provide different spaces. I have to say that for instance, in Ecuador, we are working for 2 years now with only teenagers to create safer spaces. Ecuador has never been too dangerous or violent, but after COVID, in the past 2 to 4 years, things have become very, very dangerous, because the gangs of drug dealing is a thing. They took over the country when the COVID attacked, and there were no social support, so they came as social support, but they just took over the neighborhoods, and children are recruited when they're 14 to be part of these gangs. And it's terrible. Like, it's a really bad situation, and some people really are afraid, so people don't go out that much anymore. But as I'm telling you, right, this narrative, you're already like, also like, yes, maybe I also wouldn't go out. So this narrative is on the news all the time, and then people is not using the public space, therefore it's way more
dangerous.
Dangerous. And we decided to part of the project that we're working in is really understand what is the current status of young people in Ecuador, in terms of their well-being, their safety, and their connection to the city in that sense. So we asked some questions like, what are you most afraid of, that it will happen? But we also ask, like, why, do you go out? Yes, no, where, and then why yes, why not, So a lot of the teenagers, like 7 out of 10, said, no, we actually don't go out because we're scared, because they can rob us or kidnap us or things like that. And then we ask them, has something happened to you in the past 12 months? Like, what's something that really has affected your well-being that happened to you. So indeed, 2 out of 10 said we got robbed, a phone, a laptop, something like that. 2 out of 10 said we were in a car accident. But 7 out of 10 said that they were depressed or that they have anxiety and mental health issues. And then we asked them to rank what is from the events that you've experienced, what has affected you the most.
Yeah.
And then all of them said anxiety and depression, like all of them. And the anxiety and depression, I have to say, doesn't come from being robbed. For example, okay, I had this traumatic event, therefore, no. Like it comes from different things, from bullying in school, from being at home, but mainly it's for being at home. So we ask, where is the place where you feel more anxious, depressed, etc.? 90% said at home. And then we ask them also in very open questions. This is not like really pushing them to give a question, right? We ask them, what do you do to feel better when you're depressed?
Yeah.
And 80% of them said we go to the parks, we go to the public space, we go out, and then I feel better. So imagine if I tell you as a parent, right? Just one thing before that. We went to the data of the city to see what were the reasons why young people would die, for example, right? And the main cause of mortality was suicide. So it's like number one. Then car accidents, and then other things like diseases or whatever. If you get killed, that was like very, very rare. But everybody in their minds think my children cannot go out because they're going to get killed. And then we are in front of children killing themselves because they cannot deal with being inside. And it was so clear from the sample, and it was like more than 4,000 teenagers that we surveyed, that, you know, mental health was a bigger issue. So when we go to parents and we tell them, like, listen, we are doing public space so that we can motivate children and teenagers especially to go out, they're like, yeah, but it's too dangerous. It's like, yeah, but you have 6 times more possibilities that they develop depression and suicide than they go out and something happens to them. Worst scenario, okay, they lose their phones, like, how would you measure that, right? So, and I think I've seen recently, like, more and more studies that the mental health issue in teenagers especially it's growing exponentially. It's not only in Ecuador, and it's not this whole context of violence. It's everywhere that teenagers are more isolated, farther from reality in terms of social media and stuff. They all think everybody's doing amazing things in social media, right? Everybody's having fun, and I'm here scrolling. It is not only with children. We feel the same every single day, right?
Yeah.
But children do not have seen something different. They grew up with that. They think that's the world. And if we keep supporting that instead of actually providing the spaces where you could be, then it's really going to be dangerous for their safety. And I mean, I just think also that it's nice to sometimes think, yes, we can make public spaces for children or for teenagers, but we also have to be really conscious that just creating the infrastructure won't make them go out, right? So now we have to create all this social infrastructure to motivate them to go out. And that starts with, yes, my parents are also going out, so they're taking me, because some of them cannot move independently. Again, to what I said at the very beginning, like, you can have the best park, but if you don't get access to it, same. But also, if children just don't want to go because they don't know how to socialize, then it's a problem. So you need places where they can go with their caregivers, and where the caregivers can also have fun. So they learn how to socialize from the older generation. So there is no way, when I talk about child-friendly cities or youth-friendly cities, that we create things customized for them.
Yeah.
Because the current scenario is that they have not developed those skills, and they will not develop those skills if they don't mix and mingle with the older generations. So we really need to think very broad about this. We need to think about the places where people love to be, you know, like Paris, I think, has done a great job. And you see these plazas, parks that are full of people. In the Netherlands also does a great job. I think Italy also has, like, you know, maybe culturally this idea of I go out with my nonna for gelato, right? Yes. And that is what gives you the skill to be better in the future and to be a functional adult and to be a happy kid, right? In the present. So yeah, it's a little bit really complex, but there are steps that you can take to create that.
And I feel, as you were saying at the beginning, is not, if you're just looking at children, it doesn't mean that you're not creating an infrastructure for everyone else. And something that came into my mind, I had a friend that just sent me a voice note earlier, and she was saying that she was at a small shop, like I don't know, I think it was a small shop owner with just a curtain in front of it. And she was like, I was having so much fun because the shop owner was telling me how I was. Then a friend that came and we just started to conversate. And she was telling me how important are these places to feel you belong to us in a city. And I feel we forget that how much, as you were saying, the social capital is as important as whatever is the hard surface or the bench that you put in a place. And I don't know, how do we make more this message going through? How do we bring all the community together to build this social capital beside where is the bench and where we put the bench? Because most of the time we do this project and we start the design and they will just say, let's put a bench. And then you have, no, we don't put a bench because teenager will come and use the bench. And everything revolves around
and they will use
bench.
drugs.
Yeah. Which is crazy another thing that came into my mind is that it's proven that people, when they are asking for help, when they want to commit suicide, they go to a public space. They don't stay in their houses, because when you go into the public space, you just need someone to smile at you or to say hello, and you'll just kind of wake up from what you were doing. And so it's not only for teenagers, you were saying, it's for everybody in our communities.
Yeah, no, I mean, one thing that we've seen a lot is this idea that when people is really depressed, it's not only going to the public space itself, but nature. Like nature is the most important thing that, I mean, I'm not saying this from a scientific perspective, but what we've seen from the people that we're working with, right? And it's so crazy that what we decided to do is just create a small library next to the river. It was not us who decided, actually. It was the young teenagers that said, we're sick of our phones. We just want to sit in the grass. We've never thought that it was possible. So let's do a library here. If people don't want to read, they don't read, but at least they disconnect from their phones and stuff. We don't want internet. We don't want anything. So they're already conscious as well of these things. And we want someone to maybe facilitate, conversations between us. But we want a place where you can be on your own, like as a grumpy teenager, or where you can be in a group, but where you can actually meet people face to face again. Because, I mean, these were teenagers that after a year of the process, were like, oh, we can actually talk to people. Like, it was so funny because they were really angry at the world. They really didn't know how to talk to people. They were forced to be there in the process because of their school,
Okay.
But at the end of it, they were really like, wow, I mean, this is cool. And then they proposed this little library in nature. So we did that, and we see that, I mean, the children that just pass by, or the kids and teenagers that pass by, they look curiously, they don't want to talk. But once we approach them, they always come back and they stay hours, and they really said, like, we have so many testimonies for the little time that it's been open, where they said, like, I never went out, I was so depressed, and every time I come here I feel so much better. I don't even need to talk to the people that is here, I just need to be here. And so I think this idea of creating places with nature where you can be on your own or with others is very, very important. But also this idea of having a public space where you can start meeting people, like not being so anonymous, right? A place where it's not the same to have the coffee place in a corner where that it's owned by someone and that someone is very careful about their business, than having the Starbucks that you never see the same face serving you the coffee, right? It's like they don't know who you are, you don't know who they are. But if it's my coffee place in my neighborhood, I will even go for help to them. This concept of third spaces, it's really important for this idea of mental health. So what you mentioned is, it's really, really important, and also that the public space creates that serendipity of my life matters. When you go out, and then I don't know here, but at least in South America, every single corner you have like a speaker with music, and so if I am thinking I'm super depressed, I will go out and I'll be like, okay, maybe it's worth one day more. I don't know. And this has been like proven in many ways. There is a huge project in Ireland where there was a bridge where people would jump from the bridge, to kill themselves, and they put like all these big walls so that people don't jump, or these kind of things. They put police. No, people would jump. And then one day they decided just to put music at like meditative music or happy music, and shows of lights, and now nobody jumps. Like, we don't know if we're just moving the problem to a different space. That's also like, we have to be conscious about that. But we do know that the space creates a feeling in you that it's like, okay, I cannot be depressed in this place, at least, right? So we can create more and more of those places. And then back to, you said like, we can create a bench or not. Is it about the infrastructure? Is it about the social capital? It's both. Because I think the moment that you provide, and what you are, right, designed to connect, the moment that you design something that really allows that connection and that social capital, you are changing everything. And one really cool example that I have of that is that, for instance, I've heard that in the US, the playgrounds for 0 to 6 or 0 to 12, I think, they are really designed in a small scale so that only children can fit. And they have a fence, and then the parents are not allowed to go in with the children either, because they don't want any adult inside. You can see them from outside, but you cannot be inside because of molesters, and they don't want any adult mingling with children. So they have this idea, right? Like, okay, we're going to prevent that. So we design small scale. So even if you want to go in, like, there's no place for you, right? But, and then you're like, you have an intention, right? But it's like really segregating. And then, for instance, in Sweden, there's this great example of Helsingborg, where they decided to create all the playgrounds in huge scale so that parents could also play with children. And not only that, but in every neighborhood of the city, they created a different playground with a different topic. So one is Princes and Dragons, one is the zoo, one is the sea. They're amazing. They're huge. Cool. And you can play as an adult or as a kid, because they want everybody playing. And the intention behind those was that that specific city has neighborhoods that have received a lot of refugees from Syria or from ex-Yugoslavia. And then you have these very Swedish neighborhoods. So people were segregated, and they really could never like mingle. But they realized that in playgrounds, when they had a very nice playground, then they saw parents talking, because if their children are playing, there's no way you cannot talk, right? So you have this idea of, no, I don't talk to immigrants, or I don't talk to refugees, but okay, now my child is there, so okay, I have to go say hi. Yeah. So they thought, let's do these parks in every neighborhood, different parks, so that now the child wants to go to the Princess and Dragons, that is in the Yugoslavian area, and tomorrow they want to go to the maritime one, so we have to go to the Syrian neighborhood. But children will go around, and they increased interactions between these different communities in 70% in 4 months. So now Swedish people is not worried about having immigrants or refugees anymore, because they talk to them all the time. Immigrants learn Swedish super fast or faster because they have to talk to the Swedish people and the children all the time. And then children really want to go to all these different parks. So you're not going to only one park or only the park of my neighborhood, but you are mingling. So children can also serve as these great strategy, for more social infrastructure. So I mean it's both. But I think design, I mean, this just small scale, big scale can change completely the social dynamics of the city.
It can go. Go.
And I feel it's not only just for children, as you were saying, it's for adults as well. Because there is, I love this project, is in was born in Canada, but actually now it's a bit, I think you can even ask it for in your city, but you go and look at the website, I don't remember. And it's called Musical Swings. And it's amazing. So basically, I think they're made like in couples. So of course, when you use a swing, it doesn't, sometimes you don't have someone on the other side. And basically, the more you go together in the swing, the best it's the melody that the swing makes. And so the first time they made it, they saw like, it was I think it was as well 70% more interaction between people that didn't know each other. You had, of course, from 0 to 90 years old, because you just need to sit down and, just go with the swing. So it's like how much play is important, and how much when we are more adult, we say that play is just for children. Well, it's not play. I mean, it is the way we experience things that, they're maybe a bit risky. So through play, you can experience so many things that you would not in a, I don't know, real life. I'm using a lot of this now.
They say
everything should go in the
everything should go on
development, civilization.
Yes. No, it's true. They say that you don't stop playing when you get old, but you get old when you stop playing.
Right.
So it's true. I mean, play helps, of course, like it's crucial for the children's development, but also for adults. Like we still can develop new skills if we play, and also keep our skills sharp if we have more access to play elements in general, like all these interventions that we see sometimes in the metro, that you have this piano when you go down the stairs. All these things are really important actually for our development in general.
Because as adults, like your way of play is either, I don't know, going to a party or going to gym, which sometimes it makes you more tired and mentally, like you look at other people, they're so fit. I'm like, this is not play. I mean, let me just play. So it makes you feel even worse. And when you were saying about the playgrounds and how it helped with the integration, I was also thinking about, like, this meme came to my mind that it was showing like how in US and I don't know, in rest of Europe, like you have cameras for safety. And in Italy, you have an old Italian woman from a balcony. And I was thinking, like, this intergenerational spaces also, they create safety, because when different people are in the same space, they see and receive each other, they also, have each other back. If there's a child, they look for it. But if it's a space only for children, it becomes less safe because like you're not letting the other parts of the population be there, create this connection, create the trust, and then create the safety that like they would have each other's back. So
it's trust, I guess.
Yeah,
That's the key word.
the key
Because we
word.
are so obsessed in saying safety, but at the end it's
trust is safety, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, completely. And I mean, imagine, I also think back to the cameras and maybe even back to the story of making justice, right?
yeah.
You see the cameras when something happened, and then you go
Mhm.
back to then maybe find out who was it, right? It's not, but the old woman, you know, that she will shout at that moment. She will
Remember.
throw water at you at that moment
Exactly.
or whatever. Like it's way more effective
Yeah.
to have the eyes on the street than to
Exactly.
really, you know, have a very dark place with cameras, and then like one day we will find out who was there and then who interpret that, you
And
know.
nothing happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, you answered our
Yeah.
deep question without
So we'll
us
have-
asking you, which was about the adult development and like how play could impact that. But yeah, we have another one. Do you want to go?
Should I go?
You can go. Yeah, you
I
go.
think it's as a last question.
Yes.
I think it will be really nice if you can picture to us, how do you see a city that is made by children and for children? If you could, picture, have a frame in your head and describe it to us.
It's a really nice question. I think that one, if I say a city that is made by children, it will be a lot of nature. Like children are so deeply connected to nature that we forget, you know, and I really wish that comes back because okay, we already know, you know, from other areas, from climate change, how much we need nature, but we've been working with children for so long, and we sometimes want to create. We use tools that we use in urban planning in a and adapt them for them to use it, but we want them to really know like how to get hard data, you know. So sometimes, for instance, we get them to do a stakeholder mapping, and what is amazing for us so far is that there's been no project with children in which we do the stakeholder mapping and they don't bring non-human stakeholders to the table. All the time they are like the birds, the pets, the flowers, they and they it's we never say it, you know. They think that a crucial stakeholder of their project should be nature. So we're going to do this library, but if the library is next to the river, how is it going to affect the birds? Or where are we going to throw the garbage? Like really like the grasshopper story, you know. I think nature is maybe so deeply rooted in who we are, and we are learning to forget it. Like they I don't know, somehow we create this disconnection when we are adults. So I would say like a great city for children would be one where nature plays a crucial role. I do not like this human centric idea of cities because we always think about us, but we are living in a huge ecosystem. Like you said, also you work with spirituality. I personally don't think you will be able to reach that spirituality if you are not part of this huge ecosystem and universe. And children know that. Children are super connected. So if it was by them to create the city, they do not ask parks of chocolate and candy, you know, they ask they actually ask for clean water, more trees, more animals all the time. So I think that's one of the biggest learnings. And I think that's also how I envision the city. And then, of course, I also envision a city that is way more pedestrian. I am not satanizing cars. I think we need them for some things, you know, but we need a city where we can go around without needing a car. There are some points where you could use it, but if the city is designed in a way where you don't need it, that's a good city for children and for families. And of course, where we go back to these places that can be intergenerational to socialize, to be more creative, and to play.
Yeah. great point to close the topic. Thank you. I'm so happy.
Thank you.
Can we work with you?
These are our CVs.
By the way, I asked you
You're
for your
hired.
bio and I'm going to send you my CV.
Yes, no, of course. It will be nice
you
to
say
work
it.
It's a
together.
camera. Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, I have another job. I'm happy. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Viviana. It was so.
Yeah, maybe
So cool.
last question. Sorry.
Okay, no,
Yes,
I'm just so
you-
excited.
Okay,
Go.
I know. Maybe there's something you want to promote or
All right,
something
that's
you
important.
want our viewers to know about you, to connect with you, whatever.
Mm.
Last words to you.
Well, I do want to, promote this idea of maybe whatever work you're doing, right? In general, in urban planning, in design, in architecture. I would say that it would be very nice that you take one day to look at things from a child's perspective, right? And we have some really nice tools in our web page to make that easier. We have not developed them alone, but for instance, there is the Streets for Kids reverse periscope, right? That you can go around the city with this tool that you can make it yourself, and you really look from 1 meter or 95 centimeters, right? and it's like it's really amazing and inspiring to see. We have the City at Eye Level for Kids manual. We have the book with a lot of good examples, but we have the manual also where you can assess how child-friendly the place is. But you can also, do like a play. So if you want like even a team building experience, it has cards when one person is the parent, one person is the child, and it gives you a task like go to the supermarket. And then in the middle, the kid has secret cards. So it's like, in the middle, I want to go to the toilet. So the parent needs to find if there's actually a toilet. And I think, if you don't have children, but you are working in cities in some way, it will be really cool to give yourself this experience of how could it be to be with children or just talk to children. Right? That's also important. And so we have all these kinds of tools in our webpage, and we are also looking for developing like a small guide of 10 steps of how we've been working with teenagers and what things we've found, so that people working with youth can also use that methodology that we use if they find it useful. So just visit our website, visit our Instagram, and if you do visit our Instagram, maybe visit the project S2 Cities, that is the one with the Safe and Sound Cities with the children. And you can, like their projects, their library, so they also get excited. And we have great urban planners that they are already now, I feel, urban planners, or at least placemakers for sure, yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, if any question, like feel free to reach out. We also want to know other people that is working on the field and have something to say. And if someone says like, oh, actually, I don't think that this children idea is important, I also love them to reach out, because we always want to find out ways to see like, okay, why is that, and who is, like who doesn't think this agenda is important, and then how we can discuss the different agendas, because again, I think this idea of making a child-friendly city doesn't come again just from making it for children, but it can be that we are just looking from one perspective. So it's always good to hear the people who's working on that and the people who's not working on that also, so that we can incorporate all perspectives for a better city. So yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you. It was really nice
It was really nice for us too. Yes, we loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we'll see each other
Yeah,
soon.
Enjoy Morocco, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. It was lovely.